That is a real place. It is not a screensaver. It is not a filter. It is not edited. That is Portugal, and it is 4 hours from London, 3 hours from New York, and somehow, still the most underrated country in all of Europe. How is that possible? That is the question this whole video is going to answer. Because Portugal is not just beautiful, it is deeply, quietly, surprisingly extraordinary. And the people who find it, really find it, not just the Instagram spots, almost never want to leave. In the next 15 minutes, I am going to show you Lisbon, the Algarve coast, Porto, the food that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about European cuisine, and the places most travel guides do not even bother to mention. And I will warn you now, by the end of this video, you are going to be looking at flights. Let's go. Most capital cities in Europe feel tired. They feel like they are performing for tourists. Lisbon does not do that. Lisbon is built on 7 hills, and right away, before you even get to a museum or a viewpoint, that fact reshapes everything. Because a city on hills means every walk is a discovery. You turn a corner, and suddenly you are looking at the entire Atlantic Ocean laid out below you. You go down a narrow alley and come out on a square where old men are playing cards, and someone is singing fado from an open window above. Fado, the music of Portugal. There is no word in English for what fado sounds like. The Portuguese call it saudade, a deep, aching longing for something beautiful that has passed. You hear it once in a Lisbon restaurant, and you understand every word, even if you do not speak a single syllable of Portuguese. The famous yellow trams still run through the city, not as a tourist attraction, as actual transport. Tram 28 climbs through the oldest neighborhoods, Alfama and Muraria, where the tiles on the buildings have been there for 400 years, and the streets are so narrow 2 people cannot walk side by side. And here is what the travel guides always miss about Lisbon. It is one of the most affordable capital cities in Western Europe. A coffee costs 70 cents. A meal in a local restaurant, wine included, costs 12 euros. The city gives you everything and charges you almost nothing. That is increasingly rare and increasingly precious. When people say the Algarve, they usually mean beaches, blue water, sunshine, sangria. And yes, all of that is there. But what nobody prepares you for is the cliffs. The southern coast of Portugal ends in a series of limestone sea cliffs that have been carved by the Atlantic over millions of years into shapes so extraordinary they look designed. Golden towers of rock rising from turquoise water, sea arches wide enough to kayak through, caves with circular openings in the ceiling through which sunlight falls in a perfect spotlight onto the water below. The most famous of these is Benagil Cave. You saw it at the start of this video. 15,000 people a day try to visit it, but if you get there at sunrise, and I mean actually at sunrise, you will have it almost entirely to yourself. And standing inside it while the morning light comes through the dome above you is one of the most quietly extraordinary experiences Europe has to offer. Then there is Ponta da Piedade, a collection of sea arches, groves, and golden rock pillars just south of Lagos. You can walk the cliff-top path and look down at the boats navigating between the towers of rock below. Or you can take one of those boats and go through the arches yourself, ducking under ancient stone with the Atlantic swelling beneath you. The light in the Algarve does something to photographers. It does something to everyone. It is a very specific golden quality in the late afternoon, when the cliffs go from yellow to deep amber to almost red, that you can spend an entire evening just standing there, not taking photos, just watching. This is not a beach. This is the edge of the world. I am going to say something that travel writers almost never say. Porto is better than Lisbon for most people. There, I said it. Porto is smaller and less crowded. The architecture is more dramatic. The food is better. The port wine is better. Obviously, because you are drinking it where it was made, from caves built into the riverbank. And the people are warmer. Lisbon is magnificent. Porto gets under your skin. The Ribeira district, Porto's old riverside quarter, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Colorful buildings climb the steep hillside above the Douro River, covered in faded azulejo tiles, laundry drying between balconies, cats sleeping in doorways. The Dom Luis I Bridge, a double-deck iron arch bridge designed by a student of Gustave Eiffel, connects Porto to the wine caves of Vila Nova de Gaia below. You can walk across the top deck and look down at the river, the rooftops, and the Atlantic beyond. And then there is Sintra. If Porto gets under your skin, Sintra breaks your brain entirely. Sintra is a mountain town, 30 minutes from Lisbon, where the Portuguese royal family built their palaces. And because they were the royal family, they had taste. The Peña Palace sits on top of the mountain, wrapped in a combination of Moorish, Gothic, and Romanesque architecture in shades of red and yellow. Around it, the mountains are covered in forest so thick and so green that the palace seems to float above the clouds on misty mornings. Sintra looks like something from a fairy tale, because it is. I need a moment. That is a Pastel de Nata, a Portuguese egg custard tart. It has been made in Lisbon since the early 1800s by monks at the Jerónimos Monastery, who needed to sell pastries to survive. The original recipe is still a secret, still made the same way, and it is, without any argument or competition, the best pastry in the world. But Portugal's food is so much more than one tart. Bacalhau, salt cod, is the national dish, and the Portuguese have over 365 ways to cook it, one for every day of the year. You find it baked with cream and potato, fried with eggs and onion, grilled with olive oil so good it tastes like liquid gold. Piri chicken, grilled over charcoal, basted with chili and lemon, is one of the great dishes of the world. Portugal brought the piri pepper back from Africa during the Age of Exploration and turned it into a sauce so addictive that a fast food chain worth billions is named after it. The seafood. The Atlantic is right there, and the Portuguese have been fishing it for 600 years. Grilled sea bass, barnacles from the Algarve rocks, clams cooked in white wine and garlic, and fresh coriander that you will think about for the rest of your life. And the wine. Vinho Verde from the north, light, slightly sparkling, almost impossibly refreshing. Douro Reds from the valley where port is born. A glass of white wine in the Algarve cost €2, and it will be better than most wines you have paid €20 for somewhere else. Portugal does not ask you to eat well. It makes it impossible to eat badly. Here is what the travel brochures leave out about Portugal. The Douro Valley, a river valley in northern Portugal where the vineyards do not sit flat on rolling hills. They are carved into the sides of near vertical cliffs in terraces that took generations to build by hand. The whole valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and when you see it from above, the layers of green dropping to the silver river far below, it looks like the most carefully designed thing on Earth. Except no one designed it. 1,000 years of farmers made it, one terrace at a time. Óbidos, a medieval walled town in central Portugal where the entire village sits inside a perfectly preserved castle wall. Whitewashed houses with blue and yellow painted edges. Cobblestone streets so narrow a car cannot fit through. A bookshop inside a medieval church. A cherry liqueur served in a chocolate cup. Óbidos feels like stepping through a door in the wall of ordinary life and ending up somewhere that time forgot about on purpose. The Azores, Portuguese islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where you can swim in volcanic hot springs in the sea, whale watch from the cliffs, and look at a lake sitting inside the crater of an extinct volcano. The Azores feel like the edge of the world, because they almost are. And the Alentejo, a vast, quiet plateau in southern Portugal where cork oak forests stretch to the horizon. Ancient hilltop villages look like they have not changed in 5 centuries, and the pace of life is so deliberately slow it almost feels like a philosophy. Most people spend their whole Portugal trip in Lisbon and the Algarve and think they have seen the country. They have seen the front door. The house goes much, much deeper. I want to tell you something about Portugal that I have not been able to put in any of the other scenes. Portugal is a country that has seen everything. In the 1400s and 1500s, Portuguese sailors were the first Europeans to reach India, Brazil, Japan, and the coast of Africa. They mapped the world. They changed history. And then the age of exploration ended, and Portugal, this small nation on the far edge of Europe, stepped back from the center of the world and became quiet. And something interesting happened in that quietness. Portugal kept everything that other countries threw away in the rush to modernize. The old neighborhoods, the tiles, the music, the recipes, the pace, the hospitality. The table that is never too full for one more person. When you travel in Portugal, you feel the weight of that history, not in a heavy way, in a rich way. You are walking streets where explorers walked, eating food that sailors ate, hearing music that fishermen's wives sang waiting for boats to come back. Is Portugal still Europe's best-kept secret? Less and less. The world is finding it. But the things that make it extraordinary, the warmth of the people, the quality of the light, the food, the coast, the quieter places nobody visits, those things are not going anywhere. Whatever version of Portugal you visit, Lisbon's hills, the Algarve cliffs, Porto's wine caves, Sintra's palaces, the Douro Valley at harvest time, a tiny village in Alentejo where the bakery opens at 6 and closes when the bread runs out. You will leave having found something you were not looking for. That is what the best travel does. If this video moved Portugal up your list, even one place, hit subscribe. New travel guide every week. Everything you need to plan your Portugal trip is in the description below. And now I have a question for you.
Porto or Lisbon? Which one would you choose and why? Drop your answer below.